Hi everyone. For my project, I chose the case of James Bain. So who exactly is James Bain? Well, for starters, he's the one American who has spent more time in prison for a crime he did not commit than any other person exonerated through a DNA test. He was in jail from 1974 to 2009, and he still lives today. What's the story behind James Bain? Well, in 1974, at the age of 19, James was living in Lake Wales, Florida, in a nice neighborhood community. On March 4th, a 9-year-old boy was kidnapped from his bed during the middle of the night and dragged onto a nearby baseball field and raped. According to the victim, his kidnapper looked to be around 18 years old and identified him as having bushy sideburns. He also claimed that the kidnapper said his name was Jim or Jimmy. The victim's uncle automatically thought of James Bain, one of the neighbors. Since there were no eyewitnesses, police were obligated to listen to the victim's descriptions, and it was the 70s, so that was the normal protocol. The only evidence found was semen on the victim's underwear, but DNA testing was not a tool at the time. When a list of 6 suspects appeared in front of the victim, only 2 had sideburns, one of which was Bain. When Bain was questioned by police, he claimed he had been home watching a movie with his sister, and this alibi was in fact supported by his sister. But that same night he was questioned, police arrested him. The overall verdict was that he was sentenced to life in prison, and he was convicted of kidnapping, burglary, and rape, all at the age of 19. In 2001, a Florida statute made it possible to reopen certain cases for DNA testing. With this knowledge, Bain sent in his motions for his case to be reopened, and it was sent to the court 5 different times, but it was always denied. So with the help of the Innocence Project, the state of Florida sent over the DNA in the semen found on the victim's underwear to the DNA Diagnostic Center. It was here that the DNA did not match Bain's, and therefore Bain was excluded as a suspect in the case. An attorney of defense then came to see this case and worked for a motion to release Bain from jail. His name was Jerry Hill. On December 17, 2009, 8 years later, after finally fighting the court, Bain was released from prison after 35 years. As a juror who has a deference to DNA testing, I believe these are some questions they may address. Number 1. Was the semen the only and best way of getting a DNA sample as evidence? Number 2. Just how accurate is the DNA testing laboratory? Number 3. Were any civil liberties ignored by pertaining this DNA evidence, aka the semen? Number 4. What makes a lab technician qualified to DNA test? And number 5, is there any way the test can come out to be not accurate? As compensation, Bain did receive $50,000 for every year he spent in prison, adding up to $1.7 million. In my opinion, this case somewhat sickens me. I know that race was not a known issue in the case, but the fact that the 9-year-old victim was trusted solely because he remembered the assailant to have bushy sideburns and to be African American makes me upset. I feel like there is no way to say sorry for having a man spend 34 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, and the money he received, it really can't mean anything. I think this says something about just how accurate DNA testing can be, and how it is really necessary for cases like this.